name is LeAnn, and the purpose of my speech is to explain what scarlet fever is and the history behind it. And this is my audience. During the Victorian era in the United States and Europe, scarlet fever caused large amounts of suffering and death among children. In Tara Smith's science blog, she said, in the worst cases, all the family's children were killed in a matter of a week or two. Scarlet fever devastated people and took the lives of many, most being children. Since I work in a healthcare facility, this topic intrigued me greatly. Due to the development of antibiotics in the 20th century, scarlet fever is considered a treatable disease now. Scarlet fever is a disease caused by group A Streptococcus bacteria. First, I'm going to tell you what the disease is and the causes, symptoms, diagnosis, and prevention. Second, I will give you a generalized history review of the disease. And third, I'm going to focus on a specific incident that happened in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is an hour outside of Lord Fairfax Community College. Even with the advances in medicine, scarlet fever can still be contracted. It is important to understand how it can be contracted and the signs and symptoms to look for. PubMed Health said that scarlet fever can be diagnosed with a physical examination, throat culture, and rapid antigen detection. Symptoms include a red rash that starts from the underarm and the groin area and spreads throughout your body and can cause your skin to peel. A red swollen tongue that is also called strawberry tongue. Abdominal pain, chills, fever, sore throat, headache, and vomiting. Avoid contact with anyone infected with strep throat or scarlet fever. Antibiotics such as penicillin or erythromycin, if you're allergic to penicillin, can be used to treat the disease. Scarlet fever may be easily treatable now, but before the age of penicillin, this disease was very deadly. In Tara Smith's science blog, she described 3 epidemiological phases. The first phase was during ancient times and went until the late 18th century. The second phase ran from 1825 to 1885, and this was the worst time because fatality rates were up to 33% of all cases. The third phase began in 1885 and presented as a milder disease. For both England and the U.S., note that both are developed countries, fatality rates decreased during the mid-1880s, and by the 20th century, it was decreased to 1%. Now that the generalized history of scarlet fever has been reviewed, let's move on to a specific incident. Due to times of war in the 19th century, documents were scarce. However, a blog titled Remembering Musings on Fredericksburg and Manassas gave insight onto the 1861 scarlet fever epidemic. They called this the worst disaster besides war for our nation. Wilmer Hudson, who was 8 years old, was the first victim to die of scarlet fever. In November 1861, Betty Herndon Morey's daughter, Nanny Bell, became ill. She quoted, "Nanny Bell is still too sick for me to think of writing regularly in my diary. The scarlet fever is an epidemic here, and many children are dying every day. I shall be so thankful if my little wee lamb is spared." Nanny Bell did survive, however, many others didn't. There were 41 documented deaths, and only 1 was an adult. The rest were children. This disease showed no preference to race or income. And even though 41 deaths were documented during this time, most deaths were not documented, so we are unclear as how severe this epidemic was. The last known death came in February of 1862. Betty Herndon Morey wrote that Nanny Bell talks about her getting sick all the time, and she tells me she cannot help thinking about it all the time. Due to the discovery of penicillin and other antibiotics, scarlet fever is not considered the deadly disease that it was once known to be. Even though it is not common, it is still important to understand how the disease can be contracted. It can still be contracted even in today's world. It's hard to imagine a time where a disease such as scarlet fever plagued so many children and took the lives of so many young children. Reading up on the 1861 Fredericksburg scarlet fever epidemic really made me see how severe this disease was. Thank you.